Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to our next video interview for the Next Gen Ministry. I am here with Trenton Dorner. He is youth pastor, both senior high and junior high here at Hope Church in Henderson, Nevada. And we are grateful for him taking the time today to talk to us a little bit about their ministry philosophy and how they implement that into the youth ministry. He explained some of that to me earlier in the year, and I just see a lot of biblical principles and a lot of value that maybe we can take away from it. So if you don't mind jumping in.
Yeah, man. So at Hope, we exist to connect people to live the life of a Jesus follower. It's rooted in the Great Commission of making disciples, and so we want to do that. But the question we had to ask there is, well, then what does a Jesus follower look like?
Right.
If we're going to make them, what do they look like? And so we believe, we've named it with 3 words, that a Jesus follower is somebody who abides in their daily in their relationship with the Father, with God, connects with other believers, and then shares in the mission locally and globally. We believe that based on Jesus' life. Jesus' life was all about relationships. And if our life is supposed to reflect the life of Jesus, well, then that's what we want to do. And so abide with the Father, connect with other believers, and then share in the mission locally and globally.
That's a good 3-word kind of catchphrase to remember. Abide, connect, share. That's good.
Yeah, man.
It's a good way to summarize it.
And so when it comes to student ministry, we have the exact same mission. We exist to connect students to live the life of a Jesus follower. And we believe a student is a growing student, a growing relationship in the life of a student is somebody who abides with the Father, connects with other believers, and then shares in the mission. We think it's the exact same way with students. And so we believe, though, as a student ministry, that not only is our life supposed to reflect the life of Jesus, but we have a core conviction that our ministry is supposed to reflect the life of Jesus.
For sure.
And so we wanted to look at his life and see how he did ministry and how he reached people and how he discipled people. And so when you look at how Jesus reached people, we think at least you can say he did it in 2 different ways. The first way is by just how he lived his life. Jesus was the most attractional dude in the first century. I mean, he lived his life in such a way that people were attracted to what he was doing. People wanted to know what he had to say. People wanted to be where he was going, you know?
Healing people, feeding people. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
He
very attractional.
He lived his life in such a way that outside people were looking at him going, man, there's something about this guy. I want to know what it is.
Absolutely.
So we as a student ministry want to do things that are attractional, that people in our city look at us and go, man, I don't know what you guys are doing, but it's interesting and I want to know what it's all about. And so we want to do that for our ministry, and it's going to look different in a lot of different seasons and where you are depending on the country and all that stuff.
Sure.
You know, but we want to do things that people are going to go, man, what is that all about? So that's the attractional aspect of our ministry. But then there's also a missional aspect, an intentional aspect of our ministry, because not only was Jesus super attractional, but he was also the most intentional person in the first century. I mean, you see him walking up to Matthew going, hey man, I know you love stealing people's money as a tax collector, but I'm going to change your life and you come follow me.
Yeah.
Like, that's intentional. You look at how he goes onto a boat with fishermen and says, hey guys, come follow me, and I'm going to teach you how to fish for men. Like, that's intentional.
Yeah.
You see him with Jesus, and you see Jesus with Zacchaeus. He looks up at Zacchaeus in the tree and says, hey man, I must come to your house today. Like, it wasn't, can I come? It was, I must.
That word hadn't stood out to me before, but you're absolutely right. That's what he said. I must.
There's an intentionality behind the life of Jesus that resulted in people coming to know him. And as a ministry, we want to reflect that.
Yeah.
So that's our evangelism side. But then from a discipleship side, we've also asked, okay, how did Jesus disciple people? How did he disciple people? And when you look at his life, you see that he primarily discipled 3 different size groups of people.
Okay.
You know, you see Jesus sharing his life with them. You see Jesus teaching them. That's all good. But you see him interact with 3 different size groups of people. You see Jesus teaching large crowds, right?
Sure,
Sermon on the Mount. You see that. He's teaching people. That's the attractional. A bunch of people are following him, and every once in a while you'll see him teach. But then every once in a while you'll see him, he lived 3 years with these disciples. You see him discipling the 12. He has his own little small group.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a small group size. Right.
That he's teaching, he's doing life with, he's hanging out, he's sleeping over at their house. You know, he's hanging out with them. He's a great small group leader.
Sure.
So,
venture to say the best.
Right. Yeah. I hope so. So
large group.
Large group. Then you see him teaching the large group. you see him discipling the 12, but then
Okay.
you also see him have this interesting relationship with what the Bible would call the inner three.
Sure.
Peter, James, and John.
Sure.
So we say he's teaching the crowds, he's discipling the 12, and then he's mentoring the inner three. So you see three kind of levels, and at each level, the teaching is a little more applied, it's a little deeper, it's a little more challenging, but the result is you look at Peter, James, and John, I think of the moment when Jesus takes them up onto the Mount of Transfiguration when he's transfigured. Like, that's an experience that not all the 12 disciples got, but Peter, James, and John did.
Yeah.
And I am promising you that they left that mountain different because of that
Oh,
experience
absolutely.
than when they walked up.
So how do you guys, because obviously we're all in youth ministry going to be teaching large groups, right? Now that large group may be 100, large group may be 10. But you have your large group. Then you have a small group. Maybe some are doing that, maybe some aren't, and that's something we can get into more. But I really want you to focus on that third layer. I think that's where a lot of us are dropping the ball, is that leader development, the mentoring that he did. So how does that look for you guys?
Yeah, man, and let me say this. You can do that third level of discipleship a lot of different ways. The way
Sure.
we do it is by no means the only way to do it. But the way we primarily flesh this out in terms of our strategy is through our student leadership team.
Okay.
So we meet on Sunday nights right before our night service at the church. And it's a group of leaders. We actually invite the whole youth ministry to come.
Nice.
But when you say it's a student leadership team, you're going to get about, 10%, 20%,
it scares them off.
maybe,
Sure,
So,
sure.
but here's what I know. When those kids show up, I know they want to be there.
Yeah.
I know they want to be there. And
Yeah.
so this is our third level. And so that meeting's just an hour. It's every week. And really, that's kind of where I work out my small group. That's kind of my small group. That's my discipleship group. And so we're trying to take them deeper in the gospel. In the parable of the soils, you see the 4 soils. What's the difference in all those? What's the difference between the seed in all those 4 soils? The difference between the one that makes it, the one that actually bears fruit and lasts into eternity, the difference between all those and those that don't is how deep the seed of the gospel went.
Yes.
And so my job as a pastor of small group leaders is to train them and train friends to continually be pushing the seed of the gospel deeper into the souls of our students.
That's good.
Because my biggest fear in student ministry is that we have a bunch of students who are going to graduate who are in soil number 2. Sprouts up for a season, but then when they leave, it goes away.
Yep.
The world burns it up. And
Yep.
so that's what we want to do in that student leadership team, is just continually push the seed of the gospel deeper into the souls of our students.
Okay. I love that. I encourage you guys to reach out to me, reach out to Trenton. I know he'd be open to that. If you want to dive into more about student leadership teams, I love what he said, man, we do it one way at Hope. You guys will do it another way at your churches. But the important thing is that we are doing it as Jesus did it. And there's no arguing. He did have his few that he was mentoring and developing into leaders, and they certainly had an impact on the early church.
They did, man.
Amen.
They
Thanks
did.
for the time today, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
We'll see you guys.